He had a one-on-one with Bryce Harper today. I know he's getting ready to travel. Mr. Scott Lauber, who does a tremendous job covering the Phillies for the Inquirer and experience the new look of Inquirer Sports where fans can read, watch, and listen to their favorite reporters and columnists. Go to Inquirer.com/sports. How are you today, Scott?
Hey, guys. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you fitting us in. Man, so you sat down with this Q&A, fascinating, from Bryce Harper, the Harper conversation, why he's open to an outfield return, his love of Pilates, and playing Plans 40 and more. First things first, have you sensed that fans are maybe, and we're talking about Bryce Harper, but fans that maybe not as excited about this baseball season as the last 3 or 4, and if Harper, do you think, is aware of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys probably have a better pulse of that than I do, just because you talk to the callers every day, and you, I think you have a better sense for how they're feeling. But yeah, like in my regular life, talking to people that I know, I suppose that there is a little bit less. But if that's the case, I have a few theories on that. I think that people like things that are new, people like things that are different. And it's been the same group together now for 3 going on 4 years. Been a really quiet camp. No new personalities. No big shiny objects that signed during the off season. There's no Juan Soto. There was no Corbin Burns. And so I think that maybe from that standpoint, there was probably a little less buzz going in. They also, don't forget, they started camp like 2 days after the Super Bowl, right? So everyone was still on their Eagles high, which they're still on right now. So, I think that they had that. But really, it's that the cast of characters. And that if you know baseball, that it's a good baseball team. It's a team that won 95 games last year. And I think what people struggle with, and I struggle with this myself, just kind of in assessing the Phillies, is that they've won more games every year for the last 3 years, and yet they've gone 1 round less in the playoffs. So are they better? Are they worse? There's really no clear-cut answer, except to say that they're a good team. They're going to be in the mix again this year, and you know who everybody is. So if that's the lack of enthusiasm, I think that's the reason why.
Scott, what's the latest on Ranger Suarez and the back injury, and do you have any concern?
I think you have to have some concern, right, because he missed time last year with a back injury. A few of us talked to him this morning, and he was supposed to throw today. He did not. He's going to throw tomorrow. When I say throw, I believe that's play catch. He says it's not. He says it's in the same area that it was in last year. I asked him that specifically, but he also says it's not nearly the same kind of discomfort. It's way less, he keeps saying, than it was last year. So you got to take him at his word, I suppose, if he says he's not concerned. But, at the same time, it's a recurrence of an injury that kept him out for a month last year. And when he came back after that month, he was not the same pitcher. So I don't know how you couldn't look at it and not be a little concerned if you're the Phillies. Certainly something that's important to watch. And, if there's something going on there, you want to make sure you get it taken care of before it becomes a longer issue. They've got 2 off days early in the season, one after the opener and one after the home opener. They can, get away with not having a 5th starter for a little while, or they could get away with Taijuan Walker in that spot and maybe skip that spot once. So they could buy some extra time for Suarez if he needs it. But I think it's certainly something to watch because of the history there.
Going back to your Q&A you had with Bryce Harper, one thing that fascinated that you asked him about was the Gold Glove at first base, because obviously he was a catcher, then a career outfielder. Yep. Now he's at first base, and he's learning it in the major leagues. What did you think about his answer to it? Because it seemed like he was pretty honest that he'd be interested in winning at that level.
Oh, I think that means something to him for sure. I think he's a prideful guy, and I think he'd want to win the Gold Glove no matter what position he played. But he's a prideful guy, and he's learned first base on the fly, and he's really taken to it. He really, I think, enjoys it. I think he understands that it's helpful for his longevity because he doesn't have to go run around the outfield. I mean, first base has its own physical demands, but I don't think that they're quite as significant as the outfield. He considers himself a very athletic first baseman. I think that was clear from his answer. He's talking about guys like Christian Walker and Freddie Freeman, who play a little bit of a more athletic first base than, the typical kind of lumbering, sort of unathletic first baseman that we have in our minds from maybe when we were growing up and whatnot. And he thinks he's a more athletic first baseman. I think he's been pretty good over there, to be honest with you. And the reason I asked was, Christian Walker, who's won the last 3 NL Gold Gloves at first base, is now in the other league. And if you had to pick a favorite right now, I wonder if you might look at it and say Bryce Harper's, if not the favorite on the short list. So he certainly thinks it's something he's capable of doing. And I think it speaks to just how good he wants to be over there at his new position.
And last thing, Scott, before we let you go, we've had to defend on this show, believe it or not, Bryce Harper's greatness, which we do not agree with. We think he's a great player. We think he's box office. You're around him all the time. You just spoke to him, and he's talking about not only being a great player now at 32, but playing into his 40s. Do you understand why anybody in Philadelphia would not agree that he's a great player?
No, I really don't. I'm with you guys. I mean, I think he's worth the price of admission. I think he's a star player. One of the things that sticks out to me, so he's midway through his Phillies contract. This is the midpoint this year. And the 6 years that he spent with the Phillies, his ages 25 to 31 season, his numbers are pretty consistent and even slightly better across the board than his numbers from age 20 to 25, his last 6 years with the Nationals. And, you look at what he's done over the cumulative career. I was looking the other day. I think there are 75 players who have had a 920 or higher OPS in 3,000 plate appearances through their age 32 season. And of those 75, only 25 did that for the next 6 years. You know what I mean? So it gets harder the older you get. And I think one of the things that has stood out to me about his time with the Phillies is that there was no drop-off from 26 to 31 that there was from 20 to 25. And that's kind of what got me into asking him the longevity questions. How do you take care of yourself? Because surely you must train differently at age 32 than you did at age 22. And he talked about the Pilates, and he talked about, maybe lifting less. Like he used to go out to the backyard, and he said, lift the house, and that was kind of his way of training. And he knows at his age now he can't do that. He's got to do other things. One of the things that I've talked to him about in the past, which I find fascinating, is his eating habits. I wouldn't say he's TB12, but he's certainly on that track where everything's got to be all natural and single origin coffee, and he thinks about every single thing he puts in his body. And that's a relatively new phenomenon over the last 3 to 5 years for him. He wasn't always like that. I think he's training differently. He's eating differently. He has it in his mind that, regardless of what the contract is, I think it expires at age 38. He wants to play into his 40s. He's been specific in the past about saying 42. He wants to play till he's 42. That's 10 more years. And, obviously if he has that kind of longevity and continues to have this kind of production, he's going to be a no-doubt Hall of Famer. But, just the idea that he's played this long, he's played 14 years, he wants to play another 10, it just tells you what kind of care he's putting into how he trains. So I think that's what great ones do. I think that's kind of what he has his eye on. And, I think he's very conscious of all of that.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you fitting us in. I know you're getting ready to get on a plane, so thanks so much, man. You have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, anytime.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, that was Scott Lauber on the Comcast Business Highlight. You should read it. The Bryce Harper conversation, why he's open to an outfield return, his love for Pilates, playing past 40 and more. Obviously, we had limited time. We could ask Scott about every single thing from the story, but the longevity part and him being a great player were obvious. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.